Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shatashri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shatashri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 31. Yes. Yadrupam etan nijamaya yarpitam arthaswarupam bahuruparupitam sankhya na yasyasti ayatopalam bhanat tasmai namaste vyapadesha rupine yadrupametan nijamaya yarpitam arthaswarupam bahuruparupitam sankhya na yasyastyato bhanat tasmai namaste vyapadesha rupine yadrupametan nijamaya yarpitam arthaswarupa bahuruparupitam sankhya na yasyastyato bhanat tasmai namaste vyapadesha rupine yadrupametan nijamaya yarpitam arthaswarupam bahuruparupitam sankhya na yasyastyato bhanat tasmai namaste vyapadesha rupine Anybody else on Zoom?
Jatrupam eta nijamaya arpitam artha sharupam bahuruparupitam shankhyana jashasti ayato phalamana tasmai namaste Vyapadesha-rupini.
Yat, of whom? Rupam, the form. Etat, this. Nijamaya-arpitam, manifested by your personal potency. Arthasvarupam, this entire visible cosmic manifestation. Bahuruparupitam, manifested in various forms. Sankhya, the measurement. Na, not. Yasya, of which. Asti, there is. Ayatha, falsely. Upalambhanat, from perceiving. Tasmai, unto him, the Supreme Lord. Namaha, my respectful obeisances. Te, unto you. Avyapadesha, cannot be ascertained by mental speculation. Rupine, whose real form. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. My dear Lord, this cosmic manifestation is a demonstration of your own creative energy. Since the countless varieties of forms within this cosmic manifestation are simply a display of your external energy, this Virat Rupa is not your real form, or universal body is not your real form. Except for a devotee in transcendental consciousness, no one can perceive your actual form. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Mayavadi philosophers think that the universal form of the Lord, to be real, and His personal form illusory. We can understand their mistake by a simple example. Fire consists of three elements, heat and light, which are the energy of the fire and the fire itself. Anyone can understand that the original fire is the reality and that the heat and light are simply the fire's energy. Heat and light are formless energies of fire, and in that sense they are unreal. Only the fire has form, and therefore it is the real form of heat and light. As Krishna states in Bhagavad-gītā, mayā tatam idaṁ sarvaṁ jagad avyakta-mūrtinā. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. Thus, the impersonal conception of the Lord is like the expansion of heat and light from a fire. In Bhagavad-gītā, the Lord also says, mat-sthāni sarva-bhūtāni cāhaṁ teṣv avasthitaḥ. The entire material creation is resting on Krishna's energy, either material, spiritual, or marginal. But because His form is absent from the expansion of His energy, He is not personally present. This inconceivable expansion of the Supreme Lord's energy is called acintya-śakti. Therefore, no one can understand the real form of the Lord without becoming His devotee. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānāñjana-śalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha nama shreshtam manamapi shachiputramatra surupam rupam tasyagrajam murupurim mathurim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurum tam natosmi vandeham Shri Guro Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhi Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this text is discussing how we fail to see reality in the conditioned state. When we're materially conditioned, we fail to see the reality that Krishna's actually all around us. That he's non-different from this world, actually, because this world is his energy. So this is the definition of Maya. Maya means to think that there is some existence which is separate from Krishna. And so we misidentify this material world to be something that it's not, namely separate from Krishna. And then we misidentify ourselves also in that same way. We think that we also have some existence separate from Krishna. So this is called ahankar. So ahankar means false ego. That's how Srila Prabhupada translates it. And it's a conception of ourself which is, like I said, separate from Krishna. Any conception of ourself which is not eternal servants of Krishna, because that's who we are. And Prabhupada often gives the example, we think, I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm Russian, I'm Christian, I'm Hindu, I'm Muslim, all these things. They serve to further our bondage in this material world because they're not really us. And so because we think that we're these things, because we think we're separate from Krishna, still we have this innate desire, the soul has this innate desire to enjoy the material, to be happy in eternal blissful life. And so because we have this innate desire, and forgetting Krishna, we try to enjoy ourselves in this material world. And by our enjoyment in this material world, our ahankar, our false ego, further develops according to the ways in which we enjoy this world. Like, for example, somebody's thinking that I'm a husband because they're enjoying the company of their wife. Or, for example, somebody thinks I'm a father because they're enjoying the company of their children. Or, I'm a whatever, so many things. People have so many identities that they make for themselves. But this ahankar, this false ego, although it's the medium by which we enjoy this material world, actually there is no enjoyment by furthering our false ego or by indulging in our false ego. And Krishna mentions in the 11th canto in the Bhagavad-gītā that actually it produces the exact opposite result. Ahankara kritam bandham. That this ahankar, although we're desiring eternal blissful life, naturally we don't want to die. We don't want our enjoyment to be temporary. We don't want to suffer. But still these things are imposed on us because we're in an unnatural condition in this material world. Namely, we're trapped within the material body, which is temporary, which is full of so much suffering, so much misery. So this ahankar produces the exact opposite result to what we actually want. We want happiness, but to indulge in our false ego, to entertain it, means to suffer. That's what suffering is. And so we see so many examples, like, for example, Kamsa. Kamsa, he was trying to kill Krishna. He was going against Krishna. He was trying to enjoy separately from Krishna, from the Lord. And so what was the result? He was always fearful. He was always fearing, Krishna's going to come and he's going to kill me. Is this the, he had locked up Vasudeva and Devaki. And he was thinking, is this the child that's going to kill me every time there was a child that was born? And he was so crazy, so insane with fear of dying and losing his position as an enjoyer in the material world, that he even went so far as to imprison his family members and kill children, innocent children. Of course, it's all Lila, the children who were killed. They weren't necessarily, there's a whole backstory, I won't get into it. But anyway, the point is that this ahankar, it actually makes us insane. It makes us completely insane. It makes us do things that we wouldn't normally do. What we would normally do is engage in our relationship with Krishna and be happy in eternal life. But because we become so insane trying to impose this artificial position on ourselves, thinking that I'm this and I'm that, and we really, really believe it, and we really want to believe it. And we see, like, if somebody's a husband and their wife dies, they're practically, like Radhe Shamprabhu actually mentioned this in the talk last night, practically their whole life is over because they're so caught up in that identity that I'm the husband, and this is my family, and these things are all for me to enjoy, that when it's ripped away from them naturally by the force of time, it's like their life is completely over. They can't handle it. And we see so many people, they kill themselves because, for example, a rich man, he has so much money, and he loses it all by some, foolish gambling endeavor. And what does he have left? That was his life. Money was his life. So he kills himself. So this is the nature of the material world. It's always changing. The modes of material nature, they're always changing. They're always fighting with one another. Sometimes, the mode of passion comes out on top. Sometimes the mode of goodness comes out on top. And it's on top for some time, and it's, pushing down the others. But in the next moment, another one comes up. And so like this, the modes of material nature are constantly changing, constantly shifting, constantly evolving. It's very chaotic. It's very chaotic. And so when we try to enjoy within the modes of material nature, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been to the beach. Of course, you've all been to the beach. But if you've ever been swimming at the beach and a big wave comes. We don't have huge waves here. But I remember as a kid in Hawaii, we'd go to Hawaii, and these huge waves. At least I remember them being huge because I was, smaller. But they were huge waves, just, crashing on the shore, like, And so me and my brother, we'd have this game. We'd run into the waves, and we'd try not to get, hit by them. They were huge waves, so it was really scary, actually. I was really afraid. But if you've had this experience when you get hit by a wave, and then you just get thrown around, you start, it's really scary because you're completely helpless to the power of this wave. And you're just getting, I remember, it's such a disorienting thing. You're getting spun around, and you can't breathe because you're underwater, of course. And it's just frightening. You don't even know what's happening, practically. It's just so chaotic and frightening. So, and that's our situation in this material world. We're being thrashed by the modes of material nature. When we're trying to enjoy the material nature, it's like throwing ourselves into like a whirlpool, or throwing ourselves into a wave like this. And then we just get thrashed around for some time, and we come out the other end and we're just completely destroyed. So, but under illusion, we think everything's fine. Like I saw this picture. It's a picture. Anyway, it's a cute little picture of a dog, and he's sitting. Maybe some of you have seen it. He's sitting at a dinner table. He's sipping his coffee or whatever. The entire house is on fire around him, and there's a little speech bubble next to him. And he says, "I'm fine. Or everything's fine. Everything's good." The entire house is on fire, and he's sitting there with his cup of coffee. He's got a little smile. It's kind of cute. So this is our situation, this material world. We think that we're doing good. We think everything's great. We think that we're doing. We think we're in control. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Due to our ahankar, due to our false ego, due to our false identification with matter, we think we're in control. We think that we can control this material world, and by shifting the circumstances in this world, we can be happy. Like, I guess I'll go back to the example of a rich man. A rich man's thinking, okay, if I can just get more money, or if I can keep my money, then everything's going to be good. And then by some, by the force of time, naturally, this rich man loses his money and he's thinking, oh, okay, well, this is just a fluke. This was just a fluke, but really, I could have kept my money and it would have been fine. We think that the suffering in this world is an anomaly. We think that it's not the default state of this world. We think that this world is for us to enjoy, but it's not. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, dukkhalayam ashashvatam. This world is full of suffering and it's temporary. In fact, it's full of suffering because it's temporary. It's always changing. So to try and find a niche in this world is the greatest foolishness. Because what can we keep in this world? What circumstance in this world will not change? There's no circumstance in this world that won't change. No matter how much money you have, the money will go. No matter how much, how many followers you have, the followers will go. You're going to die, or your followers are going to die. Everything in this world is constantly changing. But due to our just complete stupidity, we think that we can make it work. So, Krishna says, Mayā avyakta-mūrtinā prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Krishna is in control. Krishna says, Mayā avyakta-mūrtinā prakriti. This material nature is my energy. And under my direction, it's producing all living beings, and it's being created and annihilated again and again, over and over again. Krishna's in control. Krishna's the boss. You can't cross Krishna. But this is our mentality. This is our mentality. We think we can cross Krishna. We think, oh, I can enjoy separate from Krishna. I can make it in this world. Like in America, we have this stupid idea, this rugged individualism. That we think that, that was like the pioneer days in America. They had this idea that manifest destiny, that it's our destiny. We're going to conquer America. We're going to expand west because we're the big guys in town and all these. It's complete illusion. It's complete illusion. They think that it's our destiny to own this land and to conquer it. It's our land. My Guru Maharaj quotes this song: "Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves." But it's illusion. It's not going to work. It may work for some time, but it's not going to work. It's not really going to satisfy us. It's not really going to make us happy. Krishna says, "Daivi hyesha gunamayi mam maya duratiya mam eva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite." Krishna says this material nature is very, very difficult to overcome. We can't overcome the material nature. What to speak of overcoming Krishna? What to speak of trying to enjoy separately from Krishna? We can't even overcome the material nature. We can't even overcome Krishna's, marginal energy. But in the Sri Sampradaya, there's an example given that they compare Ramanujacharya to a lion. A lion, he with no problem, he jumps from, mountain to mountain. And but the fleas on that lion, what is their capacity to jump? They can jump, a little bit here, a little bit there. But if they stay on the lion, then they too can jump from mountain to mountain. More than any flea could possibly even imagine jumping. So, similarly in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's said that one who surrenders to Krishna, one who understands Krishna's in control, I have no power here. Krishna, do what you like. Like Prabhupada said, you've brought me here, now make me dance. So one who does that, one who has this mentality, one who surrenders wholeheartedly to Krishna, then this material nature is like, crossing over this material nature is like crossing over the water in a calf's hoof print. What's that? I mean, you see a calf's hoof print, you see some water on the ground in a calf's hoof print. You don't even think about it. You just cross right over it. So similarly, the pure devotees of Krishna, this material nature is nothing. What can stop them? This material nature can't stop them. Because they have Krishna on their side. Krishna is completely in control of the material nature. He arranges things. When you surrender to Krishna, you come under Krishna's control. Krishna is personally taking care of you. He's seeing your actions, and he's taking control of the reactions, personally, specifically to guide us back to him. So, for example, like Srila Prabhupada, he was a pure devotee of Krishna. There was nothing that could possibly stop him from fulfilling his desire, and ultimately his spiritual master, Krishna's desire, to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Krishna arranged the material energy in such a way that he was successful. So, if we don't, then this verse about the calf's hoof print, later it says, Padam padam yad vipadam natesham, that this material world is full of danger at every step. We see so many demons in Krishna's Lila. They're trying to kill Krishna. They're saying, who's this guy? He's some ordinary guy, some naughty boy. And so they try to kill him. Like Ravana. Ravana thought he could overcome Lord Ramachandra. He thought he could steal the goddess of fortune from Lord Ramachandra and enjoy her separately from him. And what happened to Ravana? He was vanquished, completely vanquished. And so many demons vanquished one by one after another in Krishna's Lila, because they have this mentality that they think they can cross Krishna, but they can't. So, this idea that, Nietzsche said God is dead. They say we don't need God anymore. This is an irrelevant idea because we can make it work for ourselves. But actually they're taking shelter of so many so-called gods. They're taking shelter, they have faith in so many things. Like when I was searching, I was searching for this book, God is Dead, on the internet. And I found another book called God is Dead, The Story of Frank Vandenbroek, Cycling's Greatest Wasted Talent. So they're taking shelter of so many so-called gods. They're taking shelter of this material energy, thinking that it will give me shelter. They're taking shelter of their family. They're taking shelter of their friends. They're taking shelter of their Frank Vandenbroek. They're taking shelter of their bogus gurus who are trying to teach them how to be happy in this material world. Bogus. How can you be happy in this material world? It's nonsense. So, Krishna is the supreme autocrat. There's no democracy in the universe. Krishna has all the rights, we have no rights. So, the devotees know this. The devotees understand, and they surrender unto him. They say, okay, Krishna, you have your way, because what can I do? And they're completely fine doing this because they understand that Krishna's very kind. Krishna's the most kind autocrat. Krishna's not going to arrange anything Krishna's perfect. He's not going to arrange anything that's imperfect. Somebody might say, oh, well, this material world looks pretty imperfect. You just went on and on for so long saying how this material world's imperfect. But actually, this material world is perfectly imperfect because it's Krishna's energy. And so Krishna's arranged it in such a way that the suffering in this world, it brings us to the point of inquiring, what's going on here? Why am I suffering? Why do I have to accept birth? Why do I have to accept death? Why do I have to accept old age and disease? What's going on here? I'm trying to be happy. I don't want to die, but I have to die anyway. Why? What's the point? What's the purpose? We see so many people they're actually inquiring, especially nowadays, because the world's in such an insane place that people have no choice. People have no choice but to, these COVID lockdowns. People have no choice but to just sit in their homes and contemplate their life. So, people often, nowadays especially, they're prone to falling into this like Prabhupada's mentioning in the purport, the first sentence of the purport, this Mayavadi philosophy. Because they don't want to accept any kind of authority. They're relying wholly and solely on their mental speculation. But mental speculation can only get you so far. We have to accept our limitations. Ata Shri Krishna namadi nabhaved grahimindriyai. That we can't grasp. How can we possibly grasp Krishna, who possesses, like it's said in the purport, the end of the purport, acintya-śakti. How can we possibly understand Krishna's acintya-śakti? Acintya, by nature, acintya means it's inconceivable. So, in order to fully understand the absolute truth, we have to accept Shabda Brahman. We have to accept transcendental sound vibration coming from Krishna himself. We have to accept some kind of authority. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshanaha. That the pure devotees of Krishna, they've seen the truth. They understand the truth about Krishna. How can we on our own understand that God is a blue cowherd boy, and he's enjoying, you know, pastimes of cowherding with his friends, and he's you know, he likes to steal butter and milk, and how can we possibly understand? When you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you read the 10th canto, those pastimes are completely inconceivable. How can we understand that Krishna is lifting Govardhan Hill with his left pinky? How can we understand how that's possible? We understand by accepting the authority of Srila Prabhupada, by accepting the authority of Srila Vyasadeva, by accepting the authority of Shukadeva Goswami, that these people have seen the truth. And we can understand that they have seen the truth because they're not interested at all in this material world. The nature of this material world is that, if one who's materially conditioned, is that they want to enjoy this material world, that they do enjoy this material world. They can't help but enjoy this material world. Because the modes of material nature, we're not even in control of our own senses. The modes of material nature just stimulate our senses to act. And we just sit back and experience the good and bad results of that. So the senses and the sense objects are always together, but one who has spiritualized his senses overcomes the urges of the senses and is controlled and is completely absorbed in Krishna. So we see in the behavior of our acharyas that they're completely absorbed in Krishna. They have no material contamination. And so therefore they can give us Krishna because they're seeing Krishna at every moment, like we heard in class the other day. Prabhupada could see Krishna. He could see Krishna at all times, in all situations, in all people. No matter how, you know, degraded the situation was, Srila Prabhupada could see Krishna. He could see the supreme hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every situation. So we have to accept this kind of authority. We have to surrender to the pure devotees of Krishna, to the Vaishnavas, because they're the doorkeepers to the kingdom of God. Like Jesus says, no one comes to the Father but through me. We can't come to Krishna, we can't come to any understanding of Krishna unless we surrender to the Vaishnavas. And for those who are interested in mental speculation, Ye nirvindakshram muktamaninas toyasta bhavada vishuddha buddheha aruhya krishnena parampadam tata patantyado nadrata yushmadangreha. Even if you engage in very intense austerities, even if you study the Vedas very scrutinizingly, as the Mayavadis do, many Mayavadis are very learned in Shastra. They know so many shlokas. They can quote, you know, so many shlokas on so many different topics. But what's the value? What's the value of their understanding? I was hearing, anyway, it's so offensive I won't even mention it. But their conclusion is so repulsive. It's so disgusting. It's so unsatisfying. Like my Guru Maharaj, I was hearing in his memories of Srila Prabhupada, he was reading, he was on a boat, he was on a ferry from Ireland to England. And he was reading, he was, you know, interested in you know, spirituality, so he was reading some book, trying to, you know, understand the truth about this world. And he was just finishing the book on this ferry. And he got to the end, and he liked it. He liked the book. And then he got to the end, and the conclusion was, so in conclusion, really God is actually our own nature within, and there's no existence of God separate from us. And, you know, so basically we're all God, and we just have to realize it. And he threw the book overboard. He was so disgusted that he threw the book overboard. So, yeah. So when you hear about the goal of our life, when you have the goal of devotional service, the end result of devotional service, namely being reinstated in our position in the spiritual world as a servant of Krishna, how could you possibly think that this Brahmananda even compares, this bliss of merging into Krishna's impersonal energy? How can you even think that it compares? Krishna's pastimes are so ecstatic. Krishna's always enjoying. There's no worries in the spiritual world. In this world, there's so many worries. There's always something to worry about. And beyond all the, physical pain, beyond all the, whatever hellish punishments, this world is full of so much anxiety. There's no, not even a moment of peace in this world. The mind gives us no peace. But, like I mentioned this verse, Atā Shri Krishna namandi nabhaved grahim indriya, sevan mukhi jivadau svayameva spratyada. That if we engage in the service of Krishna, beginning with the tongue, chanting the holy name of Krishna, taking prasadam, not today, and speaking about topics of Krishna, then this world, then we can understand Krishna. That's how we can understand Krishna. Our senses become spiritualized. And even in this world, we see nothing but happiness because we're engaged in the service of Krishna. Our situation in devotional service, whether in this material world or whether in the spiritual world, is permanent. The devotee doesn't die because even if the devotee leaves his present body, he's still engaged in the same activities in the spiritual world. There's no interruption. It's constant. So this is our birthright. Our birthright is to be eternally happy in the service of Krishna, to be servants of Krishna eternally, have a loving relationship with Krishna. This material, there's a purport in the 11th, it's in the 10th canto. It's my favorite purport. It's my favorite line, one of my favorite lines in all of Prabhupada's books. It's not Srila Prabhupada's purport, but it's probably Hridayananda Maharaj. The verse is talking about the hellish planets. And so Maharaj in the purport, he says that, there's so much suffering in this world, hellish punishments and this and that. And you hear in the 5th canto, at the end of the 5th canto, we'll hear it's really, really hellish. But the real suffering in this world is not all the physical pain. It's not all the, birth, death, old age, and disease. The real suffering in this world is actually just the emptiness of having forgotten one's relationship with Krishna. It's the emptiness of having forgotten one's closest friend. Krishna is our closest friend. Like in the Upanishads, it's stated that there's 2 birds in a tree. One's eating the fruits and enjoying the bitter taste or the sweet taste of the fruits, and the other one's just watching, waiting for the other bird to turn to him. So Krishna is in our heart. Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. And no matter what situation the living entity finds himself in, Krishna is there. Who can imagine how merciful Krishna is, that he follows us practically for eternity. Nitya Badha, practically for eternity. We're in this material world suffering like anything in so many abominable situations. So many abominable situations, but Krishna is there with us, just waiting. When is this living entity going to turn to me? When is this living entity going to remember our friendship, our relationship, our love, Krishna, my love for him? When is the living entity going to remember? Krishna's waiting like this. So we shouldn't waste any time trying to engage in material activities. What's the use? What's the value? This material world is so tiring. It's just on and on and on, over and over and over again, the same thing. Punah charvata charvan. What's that line? Punah charvata charvananam. Chewing the chewed over and over. Yeah. Punah charvata charvananam. Chewing the chewed over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, life after life, just spinning the wheel. What's the value? How can we possibly expect that that's where we'll find happiness? Like if you have sugar cane and you just chew it and you get all the juice out. How can you expect that you'll get some taste just chewing it over and over and over again. What's the value? So Krishna's waiting for us. He's waiting in our hearts. He's waiting. He's everywhere. Krishna's on the altar in his Archa Vigraha form. Krishna's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna's in his, not only is Krishna in his holy name, Krishna is his holy name. So if we take shelter of this association, direct association that we can have with Krishna through sound vibration, then we'll experience, practically, we'll experience that there's so much more bliss in Krishna consciousness. There's so much more happiness, so much more fulfillment in Krishna consciousness than there is in anything of this material world. It doesn't even compare. It's like apples and oranges. It's two completely different ball games, as they say. But it begins with our surrender, particularly with our surrender to the Vaishnavas. If we don't surrender to the Vaishnavas, like Prabhupada would say, love me, love my dog. It's not just that we surrender, of course, surrendering to the spiritual master is the most important thing, but it's not just that we surrender to the spiritual master and all the other Vaishnavas is just like, oh, get out of my way. We have to surrender to the Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, to the assembly of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Because it's only by their mercy, only by their good wishes, that we can access the spiritual world. The first offense to the holy name is to blaspheme the Vaishnava devotees who have dedicated their lives to the propagation of the holy name of the Lord. That's the first offense. And so if we don't properly appreciate the Vaishnavas, if we don't properly take shelter of our association with the Vaishnavas, take shelter of our association means to engage in Krishna consciousness with them, in loving relationships. Not just that we hang out and do whatever and wear tilak. To engage in Krishna consciousness together, and to really relish that association, and to understand that these relationships are eternal. That it's not just that we serve with the Vaishnavas in this world. That the relationships with the Vaishnavas they have in this world, they're not temporary. Our relationship with our spiritual master and our God family and our it's not temporary. These are eternal relationships. So if we really, really take shelter of it, take shelter of the Vaishnavas, then we'll receive so much reciprocation from Krishna. We'll receive so much mercy from Krishna. And we'll really be able to relish Krishna consciousness. We'll really be able to relish chanting the holy name of Krishna if we properly take shelter of the Vaishnavas. So I'll stop there and we can have questions and comments.
Hare Krishna.
We'll have local comments first. Dravida Prabhu has something.
I can wait, no problem.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just one quick note. I found your quote, your favorite quote here.
Yeah.
But the greatest pain of material existence is not misfortune in this life or being sent to hell after death. It is the emptiness of having forgotten one's eternal relationship with the personality of Godhead. Written by His Grace Gopi Puranadana Prabhu.
Chai.
This is in chapter 87, 1087-39, purport. And he did all the translations and purports from chapter 81 to 90. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah, such an amazing point. Like, Yugaitam nimeshena chakshusha prabhashaitam shurnyaitam jagad sarvaṁ govinda virahename. Without Krishna, this whole material is just a vast and joyless void. There's nothing here for us. So.
Yeah, I just had a comment. Could we bring up this point of of when someone punascharva they continue to chew what's already been chewed. They just continue in their material activities, and a lot of the times it's the examples given of sugarcane, like you gave today. And it's interesting because if you think about it, if you've experienced chewing on sugarcane, what do you call sugarcane? Just sugarcane, right?
Yeah.
You've experienced that. Okay, you chew on it, and then some juice is there, but then at one point there's just no juice, and then it's absolutely useless to chew on that sugarcane. But the example's given that, but a person, they keep on chewing on it, but what are they getting? So we could see that it's actually a state of madness.
Yeah.
Or else, why would they do that? It's just it's a real state of madness, an illusion.
Yeah.
It's like it's like, for example, whatever, somebody, they have an idea that, okay, I need to wear pants, but because they're not in order, they put their pants on backwards. And then they have an idea that, okay, I need to eat something. Because they're not in order, they I don't know, they mix broccoli and milk and yogurt and I don't know, maybe that's a recipe, but something kind of crazy, know.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense. But they have an idea that, okay, I should be wearing, I have to put on my pants and I have to eat something, but they just, because they're not in the right state, they just do it all wrong.
Yeah.
So similarly, it's like the sugar cane is there and there was juice there. Or, but there was some sense of happiness, but they keep on chewing on it, but it's just a state of madness.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's what Rishabhadev says, right? Nunam pramatta kurate karma.
Yeah.
So they just keep on engaging stuff. Anyways, okay, Dave Retta has a comment.
Then I have a counter argument to what Balaram just said.
We could hear now.
I think the analogy of punak chewing what is already chewed. If you think about it, all right, forget the sugar canes. More related is bubble gum or some kind of gum, So, first of all, it's quite pathetic. Most people wouldn't think of picking up bubble gum from the ground, but there's someone who's desperate for some kind of pleasure, or maybe a dog or something, And it's not that there's no sugar left. It's that the experience and the effort is far beyond what you're actually going to get. And you think about it, that's what sense gratification is. The people, like, think of people who get old, right? And there's all kinds of, I get them every day, something that, you haven't, here's how you can improve your sex life, because they know you're old, And I just roll my eyes. But for people whose only pleasure is material, then they want to squeeze out the final little drop of it. And it's, don't forget, there's this verse about how it's all in the mind. So much of it is in the mind, the anticipation. So you have that, and you have that. Then the experience is pathetic, but it's something, And it's a tragic problem for one who is completely absorbed only in sense gratification. That's their only pleasure. So it's that the effort compared to the result gets more and more and more, and the result is less and less and less. But there's still something there, and the dream, and finally at the end, there's nothing left, and it's just a dream. And it's, I think it's kind of a curve that goes down like that. It's
in that same vein. At one time when I was, I think I was probably like 10 years old. I chewed a piece of gum for so long that it actually liquefied.
Yeah, I remember that. I did that.
So in the same way, material nature, we try to chew and chew and chew and chew so much, but eventually the whole thing just goes away. Even that thing which we were chewing, just evaporates. So there's no hope. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just thinking when you were speaking about the prayers of the Hamsa Avatar, instructions of the Hamsa Avatar, the four Kumaras. So the Hamsa Avatar, he instructs them that the mind enters sense objects and the sense objects enter the mind. So in a conditioned state, like a little boy is like shopping and is with his father inside of like a grocery store. So he sees like a piece of bubble gum. And his mind enters that sense object. And then he tells, Papa, I want the piece of bubble gum. And his father says, this is way too costly. You have to be number one in your class in order to get that piece of bubble gum. Something like that. And so the boy, he works really, really hard in order to, be number one, because now the sense object has entered his mind. So his entire thrust of activities is based on the sense object being within the mind. And then he finally ranks one and it says, Papa, I'm number one. And he says, good job, son. He's like, hey, that's not going to be enough. You have to get me that piece of bubble gum. And so they go to the store and they get the bubble gum. So he finally gets the bubble gum. But the process of Krishna consciousness, I was just thinking that, through the process of hearing, our mind actually enters the sense object of Krishna. So the 8th verse of the Nectar of Instruction, it talks about the process of hearing and how it matures into remembrance. There's different stages. At first, one's just hearing, but then one starts to feel some remembrance, and then one starts to feel some absorption, and then eventually one is completely there with Krishna on the spiritual plane. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness is giving us sense objects that allow us to actually enjoy, because that's what we're meant to do as Anandamaya Bhyasyat. So I was just thinking of this verse, just in relationship to the positive application of Krishna consciousness. Because it's not that we don't have a propensity to enjoy, we do. It's just that, as you were saying, that conception of enjoyment is devoid of Krishna. So the process of Krishna consciousness is giving us sense objects that we can actually enjoy eternally.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That's a very nice point.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice discussion. I had a question that while even we engage in Krishna consciousness, and since we live in this material world and this body is embedded with desires to enjoy, so while doing even Krishna consciousness, sometimes someone eats a lot, somebody wants to have a lot of followers and want to want prestige and position within the spiritual realm, and then establish themselves, and so how to overcome how to understand that, when first of all understand that I'm going into that direction, and where is the threshold to now this is enough, and I'm gonna fall down very soon, otherwise.
Prabhupada said spiritual movement in the material world is a very difficult proposition. So even on the path of Krishna consciousness, there may be so many things, very subtle things which kind of bubble up. So one thing is that's why we have our spiritual authorities. That's why we have the spiritual master. That's why we associate with senior devotees, because they can guide us. He said, why do you want to start a YouTube channel? And his estimation was that this young brahmachari had some kind of desire for, maybe some following or some prestige or something like that. So that's why we have our spiritual authorities. We engage in Krishna consciousness under their guidance, under their shelter, so that they can let us know how best to be engaged. That's the role of the spiritual master, that he teaches us how to properly engage in Krishna consciousness. And so if we accept that authority, then we'll be able to kind of know when certain thoughts or feelings or ideas come up. We will be able to kind of vet them or understand which ones are correct and which ones are incorrect. Is that an okay answer? And if any other devotees have another contribution. Yes, please.
I think the answer to this question might have been answered by Dravida and like a synthesis of Dravida and Devavrata, but it was something I wanted to ask in the beginning, so I'm really interested in kind of this idea, and I've had it for a while, and this is a good forum to... So, you know, people who smoke cigarettes for a long time, if I knew what this really was, I wouldn't have started in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the heroin addict, you know, they say after a long time, they're just trying to not go through withdrawal. It's just like relief, just to use it. So why does it, to the unintelligent person who's just feeling it on a sense gratification standpoint, why does it feel good? Like, why does heroin feel good to shoot? Or why is material sense enjoyment so delicious to the uninformed? Because they'll do it and say, this is good.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because we don't have an idea of anything better. We don't have an idea. We have really low standards for what actually happiness is. The real standard of happiness is like it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know, the devotees engaging in kirtan, rolling on the ground, you know, roaring, crying in ecstasy, you know, falling unconscious in ecstasy, completely absorbed in Krishna. That's real happiness. But because we have this petty idea of what happiness is, just a few minutes of some buzz, we think that the things of this world are very enjoyable, like heroin, for example. What's the value of heroin? You shoot it up, and then in a few hours, you're nobody. Like my spiritual master gave a lecture on can drugs be spiritual, and he brought can drugs be spiritual. So he brought out one of my godbrothers who apparently previously had done a lot of drugs, and his assessment was that you do these drugs, and then a few hours later you don't remember anything, and you wake up and he says, "Who are you? You're nobody." So in the same way, you know, what's the value? What's the real value in it? It's described that we should control the mind by the reins of the intelligence. So if we have proper intelligence and we can analyze what this material world actually is, what's the result of me engaging in this activity? Like you said, the smoker says, if I had known what this was, I wouldn't have gotten into it. So if we analyze very thoroughly with our intelligence, spiritual intelligence, what is the result of trying to enjoy myself in this material world, then we won't get into it. We'll understand, okay, it's temporary. We'll understand, okay, this is what there's no happiness here. And especially if we have knowledge of Krishna by the mercy of a Vaishnava, then we can understand, okay, I'm a spirit soul. What business do I have engaging in material activity in this material world? It's not who I am. It's not what's going to make me happy. What's going to make me happy is Krishna consciousness, is engaging wholeheartedly in Krishna's service, not listening to my my mind and senses, even if they're, you know, shouting at me, even if they're screaming at me. I know I have intelligence, spiritual intelligence. I'm not going to listen. I'm going to ignore it. So, and David Prabhu has something too.
Krishna, there's a sloka in the Bhagavad-gītā which answers this question. It's in the 5th chapter. Yehi samsparsaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate advayan panta kaunteya natesu ramate buddha. Krishna explains that a wise sage, he doesn't let the senses interact with the sense and objects for the purpose of enjoyment, because the sage sees that it's dukkha yonaya. Yonaya means womb and dukkha means suffering. So they see that the outcome of this is it's a womb of suffering. It's where suffering is born from.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
You find in the 17th, 18th chapter, 14th chapter, the modes of nature. If someone is in the mode of ignorance, the more you're in the mode of ignorance, like a spectrum, the more you're looking for immediate enjoyment. Prabhupada says it's like animals. You know, they don't cognate, well, it's the right thing to do, you know, just go for it if the program's right. And so that it's very instructive. If you're looking for immediate pleasure, this is what the drugs thing is at. You know, I don't want to postpone. I want to just shoot up and enjoy. And so there's enjoyment, but it leads to extreme suffering until the point where the enjoyment comes down to nil, and all you're doing is trying to relieve the suffering of not having the drug.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why it's so important to be in association with devotees, those who can lift you up out of the modes. And the chanting of the holy name is so powerful that even if you're in the modes, but if you have enough presence of mind, or you're fortunate enough to get in association with devotees and you're able to chant, then immediately there's a pleasure there. It's not the full pleasure of Krishna consciousness, but there's another kind of pleasure. And I've been reading the early days of Prabhupada starting the movement, and that's what he was faced with. You know, he had people who were into drugs and Lower East Side and everything, but there was a curiosity, and he was able to get them to chant. And once they started that, and they were listening to him, and they had respect, then they controlled their senses, you know, after a certain point, and they experienced more. And you come out of that. And, of course, as you mentioned, the knowledge. Yahisang sparjita bhoga dukkha, and it's one of my favorite verses. You know, if you can understand that, then you'll give up, because it's just a source of pain.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. Anything else? Oh, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. I almost forgot.
Yes, Amogha Prabhu, Dandapat Pranams. My question is...
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Why does Krishna in Bhagavad-gītā say that to realize him by the impersonal way is problematic and difficult?
Because that's not what we're desiring. What we're desiring is relationships. What we're desiring is, like Prabhupada would say, variety is the mother of enjoyment. What we're desiring is to enjoy in our relationship with Krishna. And so this state of merging into the impersonal Brahman effulgence, there's no variety. There's no, and also the nature of our souls to desire, and the impersonalists, they want to become desireless. So when we merge into the Brahman effulgence, it's not a satisfying state. It's not. So naturally material desires will come up again, just like this verse says, Ye nye ravindakshara muktamaninas toyas bhava vishuddha buddhayaha aruhya krishrena parampadam tata patantyodo nadhrita yushmadangrayaha. That the impersonalists, they engage in so much austerity to achieve what they think is the highest position, but their intelligence is impure. And so they fall back down into material nature because they have no regard for the lotus feet of Krishna. So Krishna's lotus feet are our real shelter, not in the impersonal Brahman effulgence. Because who we really are, our constitutional position, our nitya swarup, is as a servant of Krishna, not as a particle of light or whatever in the Brahman effulgence. Is that an okay answer?
That is your answer?
Yes. Is that satisfying?
Oh, as usual, better than satisfying. Brilliant answer to my question, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.